Thanks for checking out Scotty's Hobbies. Today we are going to be doing the front brake pads and rotors on this 2009 Acura TSX. This will be the same, if not very similar, to the CL, the Acura TL, the TSX, and the Honda Accord from, say, early 2000s to about 2010. Check for a link in the description below to see if your vehicle is on here, and comment to let me know what vehicle that you did this procedure on. Make sure you watch this whole video. We're going to get through it pretty quick. I have the wheels off. Hopefully you could get to this point. I will be showing you what tools you'll need to do this job and provide links below to purchase those tools. Right here I'm using a 14mm 6-point socket to remove the caliper bolts. You might need, they say, a crescent wrench to hold the slider pins if they won't sit still. They sometimes spin, make it pretty difficult. But go ahead and remove your caliper bolts first. Set them off to the side somewhere where you won't lose them. While you're in here, make sure you look for other things that might catch your eye that you can fix while you're in here, such as ripped boots. I'll show you that in a little bit. First, we're going to remove the caliper, set it on top of the bracket itself. I'm going to use an old pad to push the piston on the caliper in. Before you do this procedure, and I forgot to get it on video, is you need to remove the cap on your brake fluid reservoir. So when you compress your piston right here, you don't blow any seals out on that. Also, when you put it back together, make sure you put it on before you do the pumping of your brakes. And you can find a link in the description below to purchase the caliper compressor, such as the one I'm using right here, or one similar. They do make better ones, but this one's quick, easy, cheap, and I can leave it around or keep it around and not worry about if I break it, get another one for a few bucks. Now I have the caliper completely compressed into the piston. Sorry, backwards. I have the piston compressed all the way into the caliper. I have a bungee cord I tied in half with a little loop so I can dangle or hang the caliper from the spring when I'm doing these jobs. I've never seen a brake hose break, but you never want to just let your caliper hang on the hose itself. You can break it and you can make it weak, so better safe than sorry. Have it suspended up here so you're not putting the weight on that hose. Using a 19mm 6-point socket, I'm using a breaker bar to remove my caliper housing bracket. When you put this back on, you need to make sure you use proper torque specifications, and I will go over that later in the video. But for now, we're going to remove both the bolts so we can remove the housing. Also, make sure when you buy a brake pad kit, it comes with the hardware, such as the pad retainers. We'll be going over that too in just a minute. See right here, we're going to remove them. So I'm going to take both of them off because we're going to put brand new ones on this one. In this kit, it comes with all of the hardware that you're going to need. You can also find a kit that is going to have the guide pins and the boots if you need that. Next, we're going to remove the rotor. These are the production screws. On the production line, the screws are installed on here to hold the rotor in place, so it's just easier to put together. Using an impact driver such as this one, all you're going to do is hold the screwdriver in the direction you're going, not with a lot of force, just with a little, and then bang it with the hammer. The hammer will do all the job, or do all the work for you. I have a video that covers how to use these if you look at my video library. Remove the rotor and toss it, or get it turned, whatever you're going to do in this case, or your case I should say. In my case, we're putting new pads, rotors, all new hardware, and I am using a power stop kit. Again, you'll find links in the description below. Install your new rotor. I used the production screws to put my brakes back on or reassemble. One, because it is factory, that's the way it came to me, so I like to return it in the same fashion. But from what I hear, you do not have to use these screws. It's mostly the Honda Japanese type vehicles that have these retainers. Maybe Mercedes does too, but not all vehicles have the assembly screws on them, so they're not a must. When you install the screws, you don't need to use your impact driver to install them. Just get them hand tight and you're all set. Like a German torque spec. Good and tight. Get it? Now we're going to remove our caliper slider pins. You can see this one's got a lot of built up old grease on it, or dried up grease from it just getting hot, being used, normal wear and tear. I don't see anything abnormal with these ones, but if you do see some abnormalities on yours, such as discoloration or super dry or they're stuck, you might need to replace your slider pins or the caliper hardware, all of it, not just one piece. I'll just replace all of it while you're here. Don't do the job twice. Some cases you have to replace everything, a new caliper and housing. You could find kits that are fully loaded with pads and everything. Links in the description for that as well. I'm using some brake clean right here to get all the extra grease off, make it so it's a nice, clean, smooth surface. I don't see any burrs or anything being stuck on it. When I reassemble everything, I don't want any of this brake clean or any type of cleaner to go into the slider pins or the caliper itself. So make sure they're nice and dry before you install everything. I'm using my air blower to clean out the caliper bracket where the slider pins go into the bracket. This one's kind of hard. I know not everybody's going to have the capability to do this, but I like to try to clean all the old stuff out as best I can. You might be able to use a pipe cleaner or get something in there that won't leave a residue or lint or something to clean it out. But clean everything out to your best abilities. When you reinstall or get ready to reinstall, get some brake caliper grease. This is meant specifically for what we're doing. It can withstand high heat and doesn't break down like other greases would. So make sure you're using a specific grease for the job that you're doing. Don't put too much on here. Be pretty liberal, but you don't want to have a bunch of gunk or grease hanging out when you're putting your slider back in. When I install my sliders, I make sure they move freely with no extra effort. They'll go in and out, depress, and push back out. That is, push back out. Really easy. If I have any friction or looks like it takes any extra effort for your slider pins to work, clean your ports out or just go ahead and replace your caliper caliper bracket. Now that we have the sliders in, let's get ready to install the bracket onto the car. You can see here we have the new brackets or pad retainers. These ones have little tabs on the top that need to be pushed down so they don't rub on the rotor. I'm using a flathead screwdriver in just a moment to do that, so stay tuned. Using that 19mm 6-point socket, I'm going to tighten up my bracket bolts to the proper specification. There's no real torque sequence for these bolts, but just make sure they're nice and tight. I do like to use my torque wrench. I'm using a 1/2-inch torque wrench to get these to 80 foot-pounds. I like to get a good 3 clicks out of my torque wrench when I'm tightening something up. This video I do too, not sure why, but just make sure it's nice and tight. Again, I use the torque wrench on every brake job I do just to make sure that it's at proper specification and I don't have any problems. On the pads, when I receive them in the directions, it says to grease them up right here, so of course I am. Take note of where your wear indicator is. You can see right there on the bottom of the pad, I have the wear indicator. That's where it was when I took the brakes apart. So make sure you take note of that when you're removing everything. Just make sure you know where everything's at. Sometimes I'll sit back and I'll take a picture with my phone to make sure what I'm working on. And if I have any questions later, I'll just come back and look. Oh yeah, this is how it was, or it wasn't, so I know how to put it back in the right fashion. Again, I'm greasing up the back of the pad like it says to do on the directions. Only greasing where I think the caliper is going to be making contact with the pad, not the whole pad. I don't want it to get hot and leak down onto the rotor somehow. Not sure if that will happen because I am using the right grease for the job. Here you can see I am bending the tabs on the pad retainers up into the caliper, or sorry, into the bracket I should say. Not using much force. I'm not trying to bend anything, scratch the rotor, or damage the pads or anything. Just bending it up so it doesn't rub on the rotor when it's going down the road. Now we're going to get our caliper and install it. Again, this job is really easy. It's quick, simple, couple hours at most with the right tools and pads or parts. You'll get this thing done real quick. Now we're installing this 14 millimeter caliper bolt. You're going to need a crescent wrench or a wrench to hold your slider pin bolt. Now we're going to torque this down to 37 foot-pounds. Again, that's 37 foot-pounds on a 14 millimeter 6-point socket using a 3/8 torque wrench. I like to get a good 3 clicks out of my torque wrench before I move on. Don't forget to reinstall the bolt that was holding your caliper hose in place. Maybe I forgot to go over that in the beginning. Hopefully you watch this whole video before you do your brake job. I'm just getting that to German torque specs of Gulden-Tight. Now we're all said and done. Hopefully this video helped you out. Make sure you comment below with the year, make, model of the vehicle that this video helped you on. Ask any questions that you might have, and I will see you guys on the next hopefully helpful video.